Amel, what on earth are you wearing?
It's my order jersey. What do you mean?
Did you make that yourself or is that official order merchandise?
That's official order merchandise. What are you talking about?
You know the stripes are meant to be vertical, right?
No, they're not.
Why are you even wearing that anyway? Order, they went 0-8, lost every game, don't even have Kevy anymore, Maximize didn't get to play, and their logo's trapped.
All right, I get it. Okay, I get it. Jeez, relax. You happy?
Much better. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Matchfix and our first episode of LCO Splatoon. I'm Shock, the Monarch of Mid and Demon of Diffs, and I'm joined by the faithful fanboy, order-obsessed, delusional, misguided, blind, hopium huffer, Amelg.
I'm a Melg.
So, Order's MSI performance, a little bit controversial, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of people honestly probably expected better. I don't know how much better, but I feel like at least like a win, would have been good. Obviously, not an easy group, right? Because they're put in a 3-man group with NA and EU, forced to play against them multiple times. Like in the early games, especially that first game they had against G2, they had a pretty good showing.
That's a nice trade, actually, as the ult comes out from Broken Blade, but it's a bit too little too late.
This is an important pick. Okay, here we go.
Flash comes in, and that might just be enough. He is going to put that ultimate in.
It came down to one unfortunate Baron call that ultimately ended the game for them.
Order immediately going to get to work on this dragon.
This is the type of team fighting that Order's comp is looking for. These scrappy fights, these isolated picks, and doing it right before an objective like this is how you can win games like this.
They might just be able to do it. Huge damage over the wall, though, from Caps. Kevy is so low. Corporal trying to frontline, and a huge Blacken ultimate comes in.
That game, I felt like they were in a pretty good spot to win. And after that, it was kind of just downhill from there.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think, like, for everyone in Oceania, it's disappointing, right? Like, obviously, you want to see Oceania do well. You want to see them pick up some wins. But after they lost their 5th game, like, they're eliminated from the tournament, right? Or something like that. So then they just have to play 3 more games back to back. Like, having already been eliminated from the tournament, that must just be, like, absolutely soul-crushing, like real hard to play those out. And I think those games were pretty much a write-off. And honestly, it was kind of sad they had to play those games. So yeah, is it disappointing? Sure. They didn't really have anything going for them though. Like it was rough. It was rough.
Yeah. Some people, actually quite a lot of people were talking about like how the MSI format was bad and how it didn't really give minor regions specifically a chance to sort of show what they're made of. Yeah, sure, maybe it could have been better, but it's like, it's hard to get a format that's perfect, right? There's always going to be some sort of issue with it.
Yeah, I think that's actually one thing that you kind of have with MSI in particular, because it's the first seed of every region. I think like wildcard teams can often contest, say, the 3rd seed of another region, and you see that sort of stuff happen at Worlds. But it just, this is like the best team in their region. Like they won their region. So if you get put with like a major region's first seed, the game is just going to be really, really hard. I think the only other ways they can really do it is, again, like before, they have some sort of like plan stage, but it feels very much a formality. And for a lot of people, is not that interesting. And also it means that many of the wildcard teams never actually get to play against like a major region. So could the format be better? Like, yeah. Probably, but I don't know. I don't know what the best way
yeah,
is.
Someone needs to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's too hard. Do you think the Chiefs could have done better if they were our OC representatives?
Yeah, so this is something I've actually seen a lot in like the Reddit threads. Just, I wish Chiefs would have gone. Like they have all veterans, Order are just like all rookies and stuff like that. It's hard to say, right? I think there's an argument that things that Chiefs do well are maybe things that would make them do better against stronger teams. Like I think one thing that Order's quite good at is they're very explosive. They're good at kind of playing against players that are weaker than them, or, taking advantage of those mistakes. I think like one way that the MSI teams like punished Order really, really hard was through that mid jungle. I think Kize and Kevy, they're very strong mid jungle, but they're definitely like, they're not stable, like they have bad games even against players that are weaker than them, but at the same time, they like really crush players that they're stronger than. So I think that's like the main or one like big stylistic difference between Order and Chiefs is that, Chiefs have this, in my opinion, much more stable mid jungle, and then kind of combine that with, I would say Chiefs have the stronger bot lanes. So there's plenty of arguments that maybe, these games wouldn't be blown up so early from mid jungle just kind of like being outclassed by their opponents. But like, do you really expect Chiefs to win a game against these teams either? Like, honestly, I'm not really sure. I think maybe the games wouldn't look as one-sided, but Order also had a lot of games kind of put in their favor from some of those solo kills, right? Like Kizé picking up solo kills on caps and stuff. And I'm not sure like you would have seen the same level of play from Chiefs. So feels like a roundabout answer of saying like, no, not really. But I wanted to kind of, I don't know. It's a good question because a lot of people just assume that the team of like veterans or the team that have like been at international events will just do better. And I think it certainly like has an effect, but I'm not sure they would have won a game either, to be honest.
And it's also just the fact that like, you kind of have to win your regional league to prove that you deserve that spot, right? And like, doesn't matter how good you might be on the international stage if you can't make it there.
Sadly true.
So it was a pretty juicy offseason, I'd say. There was like quite a lot of movement around the teams, and I guess we'll start off with Order, with Kevy going off to NA to join CLG Academy, and Gudo taking his place.
Yeah, that is really, really interesting. Obviously, like, congrats to Kevy. He definitely deserves like to go to a bigger region, I think. Like, he played pretty well. The Gudo to Kevy thing, I'm actually really curious to see how that plays out, because I actually think that Gudo might be a better fit stylistically with Kizé. So, and also Gudo is like quite a good player. I'm not sure that, like, I think a lot of people see this just as a downgrade, right? But I think it's actually more of a side grade and could potentially be an upgrade to like just how they play. I think Kevy like won a lot of games for Order, obviously, but it's not like Order lacks in carry potential. Like Order's bot lane carried a lot of games, Order's mid lane carried a lot of games, and Biopanther also popped off in a lot of games, right? So they've just always been a team that can carry from like multiple roles, and I think Gudo is a much better like facilitator than Kevy. Like Kevy definitely, he's a hard carry player, not really a facilitator. So I'd be quite interested to see, especially how the mid jungle kind of plays out, because I think Kizé, if he is played for, will do like pretty pop off things, So yeah, I'm really interested to see how Order do. I think Order, I'm expecting them to be about the same, but I just think the other teams might have improved like beyond them, like in terms of roster changes or coaching changes or whatever.
Yeah, I think it'll also be interesting just to see how Gudo does with a different mid laner, right? Because I think him and Kyosei were like pretty well regarded as like a mid jungle duo, and like now that they're not playing together anymore, we'll see like if he can keep up that same sort of standard. I guess another kind of unfortunate thing is that Order does kind of lose some of that draft flexibility they had around Kevy's, I guess, like signature picks. Like he's got the Evelyn, which unfortunately we won't be seeing any more of. It's a sad day for us.
Yeah, I think that's not to be understated, actually. Like having more options in draft or having bans that are kind of like forced out of your opponents for no reason other than just like respect or like fear of your pick, I think that's really, really valuable. So that is one thing that Kevy definitely brought to Order. So on the Chiefs side of things, we had Aladoric join for the starting support, Dragco moved to sub, and Kuden, I guess, cut from the roster or kicked or left or whatever. Anyway, he's not there anymore. What are your thoughts, Amelg?
I think most people would agree that Aladoric is probably an upgrade over Dragco. I think he was widely regarded as probably the best support in OS, especially like going with Peace to Worlds last year. Obviously, he's got like a good track record. On paper, it should elevate Chiefs, right? Because their bot lane is now even stronger, and you've got Raze, the perfect player, and with Aladoric, it might be the perfect support. Who knows? But it should be good for Chiefs, right? And with the Kuden thing, I'm not too sure. I don't know if he like got ejected or if he self-reported, but like, I don't know. It's weird because I always thought that he fit in well with the team, but I also don't know who the coach is now.
It's Babip, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See how that goes, I guess. I have no idea.
I am going to miss the Kuden interviews.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, it is really hard to tell like what kind of impact a coach has, like without being behind the scenes. So honestly, no idea what Kuden did or did not do. I think the Aladoric over Dragco thing, it's kind of interesting. I think everyone sort of agrees that Aladoric is like a better support than Dragco. So from that point of view, like definitely the individual skill of the team has been elevated. But do the things that like cause Chiefs to kind of lose games really change? I don't think so. I think like there were a lot of like gold leads in in like the finals that were kind of, thrown from over aggression or like bad shot calling and stuff. And I'm not sure Aladoric really fixes that. I think like you can probably make an argument that maybe those 5K gold leads would have been, 7K gold leads and maybe they're not throwable, right? But I just think it is definitely an upgrade, but I don't think it fixes like the Chiefs' core issue. It still probably puts them, well, I don't want to spoil any power rankings, but it still puts them in a really good spot for the next split though, I think.
Yeah. Kuden may not have won playoffs, but I think he won all of our hearts.
Speak for yourself.
Next up is PGG, making some huge roster moves and picking up the superstar support known as DSN, who I think went with PGG when they went to MSI 2021. Any thoughts on this move? I think it's pretty big.
Yeah, so I think because PGG didn't go to MSI, they went to MSI with DSN last year. This time they didn't have DSN, did not make MSI. It's really only a natural choice to bring her back and hopefully make Worlds.
Yeah.
Now, the Peace roster change, this is one I'm most excited about. Violet and Gunkrab, two big men in the bot line, big mogul moves out of Peace. May not pay their players, but do pay... How should I put that? May not pay their players, but... Sure. Oh, wait. May not pay their players, but surely are paying more attention to Split 2. What about that? The Peace roster changes, these are probably the ones I'm most excited about. Violet and Gunkrab to bot lane. I think that's a pretty big change for a few reasons. You've got one, Gunkrab role swapping to support, which, we could make a whole Matchfix episode on in its own right. But also Violet coming back from NA last year, played like really, really well. So looking forward to this.
Yeah, I mean, Violet obviously coming back from a pretty successful run in Academy, coming back with like a lot of experience, playing in NA. I mean, obviously an upgrade over Cheon, right? And with Gunkrab versus Beats, I'm not too sure. Like his role swap, we don't really have much to go off of. I know he played a few support games, like while he was filling on Direwolves last year. But yeah, other than that, kind of a question mark.
Yeah, I think that Gunkrab support will actually be. I'm gonna just say something crazy here, but I think Gunkrab support by the end of the split will be top 2 support. So,
really?
Yeah, kind of going out crazy here. I think Gunkrab, like when he played scrims as support, he was like gaping the other supports, man. Like it was not close most of the time. So I think there's definitely the hardest thing in my opinion about swapping to a new role isn't so much learning the role as it is like all the new champions and matchups. There's a lot of like specific information that kind of has to be learned only through experience as opposed to just like understanding the role as a whole. Now, it might be easier for them because like having played AD, right, like you interact with the supports quite a lot. So we'll kind of see how that goes, but I expect there to be like some growing pains. But by the end of the split, I think he'll be really good. Obviously, Violet, we all know, really, really good player, right? So I think for Peace, most of last split, they had a very good bot lane for most of the split, but then when it came to playoffs, their bot lane had kind of just like completely dropped off.
Yeah.
I think this will be like a very strong ball lane, and I'm hoping it stays the whole time. And I think it definitely, Peace are probably the team that have improved the most with their roster changes, I think.
All right, next up, Direwolves. Lots of changes across the board. Goodo's out, obviously, and Shardblade in for top. Don't really know who that is. I feel like I've seen them on Weekend Warriors before, maybe like an amateur team, but they don't have any like Leaguepedia entries, so really hard to say. Oh dear, indeed. Yeah, who else we got? We got Poltron in for jungle from the coaching position, which is kind of interesting, and Suman in for Kyosei mid, and I think Dante is being played over Frost's AD as well, and support Bulldog and Shinky. So pretty much a different team. I don't know. There's so many changes.
Yeah, those are actually crazy changes. I think it'll be really, really interesting to see how they do, because I think their two best players and like the people that everyone kind of considered to be the real strength of Direwolves was their mid jungle before. So changing their mid jungle completely, it's a bold move.
It is bold. And moving in your coach to play jungle as well.
Yeah, that's funny. I feel like that's like, I'll do it myself kind of thing, you know? He's sick of them having bad macro or whatever. He'll just put himself in and sort it out. So I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like they overall, on paper, they seem like they're weaker as a roster. That being said, like I have heard that Direwolves had like some internal issues. I mean, who doesn't these days?
That's like always tradition.
Yeah, exactly. But it might be that this team is able to like develop better. You know, they might be a bit more cohesive. So it's really hard to say how they're going to do without having seen like many of these players before. I guess some of them we have seen before, but yeah, like we've seen Poltron play like a couple jungle games. I have no idea who.
Fun fact: no, he's played one game competitively, and it was against. It was when he was on Gravitas, and it was against PGG,
and he won.
And he was playing Shaco, and he won. So he's got 100% win rate. Superstar jungler.
He ruined their perfect record. Right?
He did.
Yeah. Okay, so he's probably the best in the world.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I have no idea who Shardblade is. Like, who knows what's going to happen? My gut feeling says the Divals are probably weaker just because they lost a lot of like what made them strong. But they could just be, well, they definitely are a completely different team. And who knows like kind of how that's gonna turn out.
Yeah, I mean, Dante played like a couple games with Divals last split, and I think he did all right. And I've always thought of him as like pretty mechanically good. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. I'll definitely be watching him. And he's from New Zealand. I gotta respect that. But yeah, kind of almost like sad to see because I feel like Divals like towards like end of the split, they were heading in like a pretty good direction, I feel like. So kind of like having to start from scratch again with like a whole new roster, kind of sucks. Maybe Divals would have been good with the old roster. Who knows? We'll never know now.
On the Kanga side of things, not too sure what's going on, honestly. So at the time of recording this, at least, only has stepped away, or has stepped down, from his position. And Scott has stepped away from like League of Legends entirely. So we're in a weird spot here where, maybe we'll know by the time this episode comes out. But right now, we have no idea who this team's jungler is. They don't have another jungler in the GCD. I don't think it's been said whether or not Only is coming back. So honestly, have no idea what's going on. Maybe they're just not going to have one.
Yeah. 4v5.
Yeah, it could be. Also, I think Fido has been confirmed, just like he is the new mid laner now. But yeah, I'm not too sure what's going on with Kanga.
Mammoth Esports Club. They've picked up Paprise in top and Mikru in mid. So yeah, I don't know who Mikru is, but I think you've played with Paprise before, right?
Yep. So I've played with Armored Papton before. To be honest, it's been a long time since he's played competitive. So any kind of thoughts I had on him then are probably like completely irrelevant to now. As far as I know, he just didn't play League for a long time, or he had like some weird switch where he like wanted to play AD carry, but then decided to go back to top. It wasn't working out, I guess. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see him come back. I think for a couple of reasons. Like one, it's always interesting to see people from like previous seasons like come back after an extended break and see if they're like still, in their form that they were before, or if they're just like completely washed up, So there's that. But also, maybe you'll bring a different kind of dynamic to Mammoth, give them another carry threat. He always liked playing carry tops. So we'll see how that goes. Mikru as sub-mid, kind of interesting. I'm not sure why they would have gotten a sub-mid, honestly. Like maybe the idea is that they're going to like practice in 1v1s or something like that. Or maybe they think his like champ pool is like significantly different. I don't really know much about Mikru other than I always like ratio him in the laning phase, but that's not Mikru specific. That's just everyone, right? So definitely not something you hold against him, but yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with that. Maybe he will actually like see some game time.
I think, I don't know, something I thought was interesting was like Paprise versus Tron, because I feel like Tron was okay as a top laner. Do you feel like Paprise is an upgrade over him?
It's like just too hard to tell, right? Like I haven't seen Paprise play in a super long time. I don't really like pay much attention to people in solo queue anymore. So I don't really know. I actually have no idea.
And of course, last and potentially least, Gravitas. They lost Asus and Akano, and they've added a jungler called Linia to the GCD, and I have no idea who that is. And I don't think you do either, right?
I do not.
I can only assume they've been taken out of their contract cell.
So now the moment you've all been waiting for, the Matchfix Power Rankings. Now, Mel, you've always been a bit of a delusional guy, so I'd like to hear your take on the Power Rankings first.
I'd just like to preface this by saying I was an Order fan and they went to MSI, so L.
What did they do at MSI?
Anyway, first off, number one, I have Chiefs. I think they were good last split, didn't make it to MSI, but they had a good playoffs run, and yeah, they've got Alidoric now. They're just strong. What else to say there? For number two, I've got Peace. Because I think, I don't know, it's really hard, but I think Peace, a lot of the issues from playoffs where they fell off were with their bot lane. I think with sort of a revamped bot lane who already have like proven skill and Violet, like they should do better. For number three, I've got Order. And I think it kind of comes down to what you said earlier with Goto potentially being a good fit for Order. I think obviously it's going to be bit rough without Kevy. There's going to be like a bit of an adjustment period where they're trying to get used to their new jungler, getting used to like how they need to play the game. Because I think, a lot of their wins came off the back of Kevy, and going to have to try and shift that towards the other carries on the team. But I think they can do well, and I think Godo is a good jungler. And they made it to MSI. They can make it the Worlds or third place in LCO. And number 4, I've got PGG. And I mean, they didn't change the roster that much, and they showed up in playoffs, and towards playoffs. But they was kind of stumbling at the start of the season, and I'm just, you have to put someone fourth, right? And I feel like if there's a team that will stumble for the longest, could be PGG. They've done it before.
Okay.
What do you have to say? Am I delusional or?
I mean, you are delusional.
Okay.
But, okay, so I agree with you on a couple of things. I think Chiefs are probably first. I think, they were like pretty close to winning before. They've had like arguably, a pretty big upgrade. So I think they kind of enter the split as front runners. I like your spicy pick as piece number 2. I actually agree with you. I think we're investing a lot of hope. We might just be overdosing on hopium here, but I think like Violet is probably going to play really well. Maybe we have too much faith in Gunkrab, but I think he's like proven before that he can play support, and hopefully he can do so again. I think, Peace, they seem like the biggest winner of the offseason, like compared to what they had before to what they have now. I think it's a really big increase. And like you said, their bot lane in playoffs before wasn't really that impactful. And at least these players do have some experience in playoffs, but whether or not it actually makes a difference, people always say it does, whether it does or not, we'll see. Now, third is where I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think PGG are probably third. So while PGG haven't had any roster changes, they have been boot camping in Perth, playing against the Singapore teams. And I think that it's underrated, what that does for you. Boot camps do a lot for teams, playing against better players, better teams, makes you play better. Also, I think they will probably come out of the gates pretty strong, having practiced a lot in the off season, whereas other teams may not have. So I also think that PGG did ramp up over the last split. And I'm looking forward to them continuing to ramp up kind of over the next split. Now, fourth, Order. People are going to get mad at me for this, but I don't think Order are going to be, despite having Order fourth, I don't think Order are much weaker, if weaker at all, than last split. I think that just the problem is that in split 2, the teams are stronger. So if you win split 1, if you stay at that same level, you might not win split 2 because the other teams get stronger, right? And I think that through virtue of roster changes on Chiefs and Peace, as well as I think kind of just how PGG have been ramping up and practicing, I think these teams will pull ahead of Order. But I really don't think Order are going to be much worse than they were before, or maybe even they could even be a little better. It's really hard to say, but I just think those other 3 teams have benefited more from the offseason.
Hold that thought.
Oh no.
All right. Look, you said that PGG have been scrimming against, good Asian teams and on the Singapore server, but haven't Order just been at MSI scrimming against some of the best teams in the world?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable argument, right? But they haven't been scrimming with their full team, right? They have a new player coming in, and I think that one different player can actually make a pretty big difference, right? Because in terms of champion priorities, just being on the same page in the game. But you're right. I think definitely on an individual level, despite not changing their players, they have probably improved individually, but it's real hard to say. Yeah.
I feel like if Puma can, reach the level of play that he did in playoffs, he was popping off in playoffs. And I think if he can reach that level again, right, he can really be that carry for Order. So
I feel 2, 3, 4, and maybe even first place as well, they're all quite close, right? I don't know how you feel about it. I guess you're just an Order fanboy, but I really feel at the moment these teams look very close, and I'm not too sure. I could easily see Order, making the comeback and being second or first. At the same time, I could see, Chiefs potentially not getting that much out of it, right? Because it doesn't fix maybe some of their core issues. So I think the 1 to 4 at the moment, it is we are just speculating, right? That's what I think at the moment. But it could definitely change.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that Order can win.
I guess.
All right. Well, with our power rankings dusted and done, only thing left to do is catch the broadcast tomorrow. So yeah, that's it for today's episode. And as always, we'll catch you next time for your weekly fix. That's good to say again.